Hello, we are live. A lot better than 2 weeks ago when I pushed the button and we didn't go live. You have reached the CNPS Saturday morning chats. Whoa. Hey, everybody. Welcome back, David. Yeah, it's been a long time. And before I start talking about everything, I put them in the slides so I don't get distracted and start talking about things beforehand. So let me go ahead and go forward here. First, I want to shout out many thanks to both Ian Cohen, who is here, and Roger Anderton. For the last, I think, couple of years, from what I can tell, they have been really the spokesman and for people for our Chappelle Natural Philosophy Society. And we in the society greatly appreciate it. It's not easy. Just ask Ian about trying to set up talks with people. It's quite difficult. And because I've been involved with this organization on or off, mostly on since 1996. And myself and Greg Volk, we've been kind of burned out. So greatly appreciate what Ian Cohen does. And of course, every other week we get our dose of Einstein science, I would call it, because it's real science. But I want to thank both Ian and Roger. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, what I've been doing. I'm going to talk about the new CNPS websites. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about our 4 universal motions, the things that my father and I have been working on. And then my father's going to have a presentation, which is recorded, and it will come out right. I'm going to play it from my computer here. And finding the right current. How does electricity find the right current? So as president of CNPS, what I've been doing, well, weekly marketing for our Saturday talks, this is what it involves, and it takes 2 hours to do this. Making a thumbnail, all those beautiful thumbnails in Adobe Illustrator, generating a StreamYard live session for YouTube and Facebook, updating the motion date for the graphics, the countdown, setting up the live.naturalphilosophy.org, generating 2 emails, which is really takes the longest for MailChimp, because we send one out earlier in the week, and then I have one sent out 15 minutes before. Also, I have been spending a lot of time cutting expenses and generating revenue as best we can. We got a server sponsor, that is, our server is free. We've cut our unnecessary subscriptions, softwares, and organizing fundraiser. I'm just going to double check here if we're live. Just a second here. Let's see. Live sessions. Somebody else can check. Can somebody check that we are live? I think we are. So we're making sure our membership software is working, which is actually was a big thing. And then also fixing a lot of the websites. So, here's more. Redoing our websites. We redid the main website completely. I did the code and graphics for that. I had to unhack Beyond mainstream website. I hadn't looked at for ages. And between myself and I used Copilot to help out, try to unhack it, and we did. That was quite an ordeal. And it seems to be working fine now. We updated our wiki open source software. This was something I did a little while back. Updated the World Science Database partially. All the PHP code, which is almost, I think, over 100,000 lines of PHP code I wrote way back in the early 2000s or late not teens, but the 2000s, not the 2010s. It literally it couldn't run anymore because the PHP was so outdated that it just couldn't run anymore. So what I did was to get that, again, with Copilot's help, to change the functions in the hundreds and hundreds of PHP files, and it got working, semi-working. It's not done completely. And it takes a lot of work in WordPress, PHP coding, and MySQL database stuff. I mean, I'm in database hell, PHP, WordPress. So because I know all those things, it certainly helps. But there were times I couldn't do that. And since we've cut such expenses, and I want to keep this working, basically, I just went in and pulled these things from the dead or being hacked. I spent a cost of $350 over the last year getting our membership software transferred, because when you make a new website, long story, if you're into software and database stuff, really not easy to do. So I got some help on that. And also our open source Discourse forum, because the forum software is Discourse, which is one of the premier, if not the premier, open source forums. And I'm going to talk about that and show you that. And we need to get our email chains into that, because it's really great. You start a forum in a little topic, and it'll email you, and you can reply in your email, but it will be recorded for other people to join and see, or you can make them private if you want. So to get that running, I needed to have some help. Where have I been? Well, I'm semi-retired as of June 2024 from the LexisNexis Supercomputing Group. And I wanted to get a part-time job and to make ends meet. So I actually became an adjunct professor. Yes, in fact, I've got a graduation, my first graduation. I'll be going with those funky regalia, they call it, at the Northeastern University, Miami. Northeastern, if you don't know, is actually based in Boston. It's the #1 school in the United States for co-ops, or what they call internships. I think we had over 100,000 applications. We have a lot of students from around the world, and they ran out of space, so they opened up their 13th campus in Miami. We're just opening up, and I was hired to teach there. They know my background, which is AI, natural language processing, and they said, well, look, we're just starting out. Can you teach a course on NLP, trying to get not NLP, database management, SQL, which I know quite a bit about. So I've been teaching that, and been trying to get some other courses, but that's still not happening, because again, we're so new. We are finishing up literally one more change on a textbook on NLP++. NLP++ is a computer programming language my friend and I invented, which is the only computer programming language ever made for natural language processing. People haven't been paying attention to it until, of course, we realize that the generative programs, which I don't even call AI, are not reliable. So this is becoming really something that's going to be, I think, important in the future, and hopefully teaching around the world. My friend and I invented that 25 years ago. And I'm also co-founding the NLP Foundation, which will include the NLP blockchain, NLP coin. And as I promised myself when I was in my mid-30s, when I stopped my art career, I was being collected in LA by collectors and everything. And I was doing my AI and stuff during the day and lived in an art studio. I dedicated my time after that really to computer science. And then I said, when I get retired, I start doing art. And actually it's coming along. I'll show you a little bit about that. And the Dissident Science channel, I hope to get up and running so we can get, actually, our goal is to get 500,000 people in the next year. Right now, we haven't launched it just yet, but that would be getting more people eyeballs on this. Again, if you don't know, I have over 40 years of experience in AI and NLP in the industry. I give talks on NLP at universities around the world, mostly remotely, sometimes in person. I co-created the NLP++, told you about that. NLP++ analyzers are trustworthy AI and rule-based, unlike the large language models. It's harder. It's going to take 10 years to do, because real AI is hard. And we were very lucky to be picked up by BP Publishing, Asia's largest IT publishers. They sold over 100 million books. And that'll be good, because, India and China, there's a few people there. So we're hoping that's going to be launched, actually, we hope this month. So, interestingly enough, I've been using generative programs. Again, I don't call it AI. They're very nice algorithms they use, but generative programs to make this. Now, the video I'm going to show you is not me. it is me because you can see I recorded here, but I recorded 90 seconds of this. So anybody who's out there wanting to make videos for their YouTube channels, whatever, it's really great. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up a video file here and play you first in English, me speaking. So let's see, where's English? And again, I never said any of these words. Hilster, co-creator of NLP++ and co-author of the brand new NLP++ textbook, now published by BPB Publishing. So that's me talking typed words that I typed in, because I am terrible at recording stuff. One of my biggest problems when I was doing my YouTube channel, Dissident Science, was that I couldn't record things very easily, because I would always ask my dad. I spent an hour and a half trying to record a script that I was reading and can't do it. Let me go ahead and let's see, where am I? Okay, remove from studio. Okay, and I want to add now. Now let's do Chinese. Yeah, that's one of the great things about these programs, is you can then do everything. And I've checked it. I have 3 Chinese students in my database class. And so this is Mandarin for those who know the difference. There's Mandarin, there's Cantonese, but this is Mandarin.
我是 David Hilster NLP 加加的共同创作者和全新 NLP 加加教科书的共同作者，现在由 BPB 出版。几十年来，
yeah, the graphics I had to do, but I actually tested this with my my students, and I said, and they were like this in the class going, and it's like, okay, is that because it's so bad? They go, no, professor, that's perfect. It looks, it's quite amazing. So the reason I did that is when we launch our book, we are going to be selling worldwide. And so I have this introduction that talks about our book, why you should get it, what's important about it, and all in 10 languages now. So it's pretty cool. Let me get rid of that. And let's go back to the slides.
Hi, I'm David.
Oh. Right. And in NLP in general, I'm starting the NLP Foundation. We're looking to get funding for that, for natural language management system. Basically, the problem is we have to write these programs by hand. Now that we have a universal programming language for NLP, we need to meet all the dictionaries for English, for Mandarin, for Hindi, for French, for Spanish, all those. And we're going to start involving the entire world on that. And how do you do that? How do you get the entire world? Because computer science can't do that. I mean, computer science, tech companies will not hire tens of thousands of people. Our goal is to make a blockchain, which basically keeps track of people adding a dictionary. So I'm going to be talking with India shortly. They have 13 languages, and they're going to be working with us, and we're going to be building those languages. And from there, we can build with NLP++, we can build the knowledge bases, the database, the dictionaries, and then linguistic algorithms to read and understand text, just like we humans do, and all written by hand, no training. And it's a big project. So I call this the Great Digital Migration in Linguistics, and that's something I've been working on. The artist, turns out when I go to interview at Northeastern for a computer programming jobs, they're in the middle of the Wynwood district. Now, in the early 1990s, I was represented by Los Angeles Museum of Art. I put that aside, as I said, and people were collecting me. And then when I retired, I went there and I couldn't believe it. So here's some of the walls. People go on tour. When I go there once a week to teach, because it's like an hour and a half drive from Delray Beach here, Florida, there are tours going around because every wall is full of all of these artistic, these graffiti artists. And it turns out that I have a style, my new style I've been doing is what I call intellectual graffiti, because I put the 4 motions of physics in it. I put computer code on top of it. I put words, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to be having a show. There's a reason I'm telling you this, because it will relate to what we're all doing and hopefully bring us attention. I have an upcoming show. I've convinced them to do a one-man show at the university I call it Northeastern Walls. And I'm going to be doing that. And again, this feeds back into what we're going to be doing here at the CMPS and hopefully bring more attention to. And here is one of the murals by Al Mack. He's a Los Angeles. I tried contacting him, but he's a worldwide figure. And so I decided, well, I wanted to do artwork with that. And I did artwork. I took this and I made my graffiti style with that on top of this using his artwork, but you can't do that. It's copyrighted, even if it's on a wall. So what I decided is, well, if I can't put, take the walls of Wynwood, make art pieces out of them, I'm going to start putting the people from Northeastern and the people in my life on the Wynwood walls as a show. And that thus came the Northeastern walls. And here's part of my art graphics where I take the photos and I colorize them and I put graffiti all over it. In fact, you can see some of the four motions there. And then you can print this out. You can print it on canvas or metal or whatever. And so that gives you an idea. Here's part of my style where, again, I take these photographs and then I do colorations. I change it. I put a lot of stuff in. You can't really see the details. You really got to get up close to these things because it's full of stuff. It's full of Easter eggs. I put stuff in there that you got to look, that are hidden. So that's what I do. I am commissioning portraits. You can go to my website, dhilster.com, if you want to have me do your portrait. You can see here I actually do draw people who I always include in my shows drawing. So this is a drawing my daughter wanted me to do with her voice teacher. And then one next to it, it was my first client, actually, since I started again. She had her two granddaughters and her husband who had died a number of years ago. And I put together this nice piece of art, very beautiful. And so it's in my style I call intellectual graffiti. Here's myself and my dad's portraits done in this intellectual graffiti stuff. Again, you go in there, there are hidden things like my mom's portraits and my dad. I have things in there that are quite, so you really have to look at it. There's all the places my dad's lived in there and you all written there, and you've got to look around and find that. But it's also still balanced and all that. Art is still art. It still has to be beautiful, balanced in colors, all that stuff. This is one I just finished where I actually drew. I printed last night. I finished it. I put my photo in there. I do the intellectual graffiti there, and I actually use programs to do that. So a lot of these things like the four motions of physics, I literally have programs I wrote in Adobe JavaScript to make these particles flow around there. You can see flowing around my head. That's an electric flow there. And then I draw on the paper. It was the first time I did that. The paper was super smooth. I tried pencil, didn't work. So that's a charcoal. You can see all this again on my site. So that's what I've been doing. But when I do my Northeastern show, I'm going to put in a teaser, which I was going to show you here. That was my idea, but I can't. But the title of the show are Science Heroes and Villains. My goal is to get one of the 5 galleries in Wynwood to represent me. And so in my show in October in Northeastern, I'm going to put one. I already know who it is, what scientist it is, and it's going to be a full length size, like sort of like you're standing there looking at the person. It's going to be a photo because now we can generate, photorealistic photos of even ancient people who are not with us anymore. And I'm calling it Science Heroes and Villains. So the heroes, I have Newton and new modern science like Dr. James Maxwell and some others. I haven't really thought about that side too much. I've already generated photos, which I'm going to print in black and white, put on a canvas, and then paint my graffiti over that. And Einstein, Hawking, and I've got them in clothing and setups that are kind of shocking. So my goal is to have a show that's going to draw attention, like the one of Einstein, which I already have there. Will have all these things, little things that we know are quote unquote experiments that show him wrong, that kind of thing. So that's the idea. Now, obviously, it's very good but these are for real collectors. Real collectors want 2 things. They want things, a lot of times, things that people they recognize or can see, and they also want original stuff. I can't do it all digitally, so therefore that's why I have to put at least 30% of it. And people are paying a lot for that. So I'm hoping to bring it. And I also have a sculpture that involves the expanding Earth that I want to do. And I've been talking with James Maxwell and what time is it? 10:19. We're good. James Maxlow and Stephen Hurl and Dennis McCarthy on all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. I am a person in AI. I'm giving 2 lectures at the eMerge conference, which is the biggest tech conference here in Miami. Believe it or not, Miami tech is booming. And so I get a lot of questions. I'll be give 2 talks at our booth at Northeastern to the people there. One's going to be LLMs, what are they good for? And the other one's going to be about the NLP Foundation, how we're going to actually solve the problems that statistical systems can never solve. I mean, you can't have a trained system. There's no intelligence there. It's a great autocomplete that's super useful, but it's not, you can't put it in real world situations. So I'll be talking first about the LLMs, what they are good for. I use them. A lot of people use them. Of course, how long they're going to last, I don't know. So what I would say about LLMs to everybody, yeah, they're not intelligent. They're extremely useful tools. They help you accelerate certain things. They're good for what I call busy work. Okay, busy work. They're also kind of like a village idiot. They basically, imagine if you follow a doctor around for 2 months and you are able to speak just what they speak without understanding anything. You can fool a person probably for a week and go around yourself doing the same thing because you know how to speak like them without understanding anything. That's the same thing. Even if you ask a large language model to explain itself what it just did, it has patterns about how it does it. Now, the agents cut it down into little pieces. But again, I've used those agents for programming. And believe it or not, you get into cyclic hell if you're a computer programmer, which I am. And so, yeah, they're useful. But we know the limitations. The reason they're pushing it and saying you're going to take your jobs, that's just not true. Our jobs are safe. The hype is out of the control. It's really for money and ego that they're out there. So when you are asking it to explain some theory and say, look, this is what you're doing is you're using a machine that's looked at all of English everywhere, all the relationships between words. And with that, you give it text and that makes it autocomplete, literally. Again, I've got a degree in mathematics and linguistics. I know how large language models work. And it's just it's amazing how well it does do. But there is also the second question, which is, will they stay around? Right now, they are just untenable to process. And the question is people also are realizing it's slop. Well, the slop word comes from probability. So probability outputs is what people come up with the word slop. But you can never, one of the reasons you know that is if you ask the same question twice to a large language model, you get 2 different answers. So again, they're useful. They help accelerate, do busy work. A lot of small companies who can't do certain things can use it to help do certain things. But in the end, they'll never be intelligent and they'll never be trustworthy. And yes, it remembers everything. It's not learning about you. It keeps text in the background and shoves it in with every prompt you write. That's how it works. It's not remembering. So anyways, people use them cleverly and great, but will they stay around? The cost and the moral and the copyright interest. Right now, there's over 200 copyright lawsuits going on. So be wary. Use them now is the way I say. So, all right, let's take a look at our new websites. Again, I redid the CNPS main website. I revived the Hack Beyond Science website, which is great because this is a very good website, and half revived the World Science Database. We're going to take a look at the new discourse forum. So let me do that and remove this here. Go to good thing I have lots of screens here. All right, so we want to go to natural philosophy, and I'll show you that when it's up. I'm pretty happy. I'm very happy with it. I must say, I know I'm patting myself on the back, but my goal was, let's see. Am I screen sharing? Oh, I got to stop screen sharing. Oh, sorry. There we go. All right, I'm just bringing this up. So let me bring up a screen share here, a window. There we go. And let's share this. So Let's go. It'll go back in the. So this is what we see first: a banner with the major things we do. Major things. Oh, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to our forum where you can discuss with other people, which we all need to start doing instead of these email chains. Subscribe to our newsletter. That's how we get. I'll talk about that too. Become a member. This is how you can sign up and be, $35 a month, a year, or whatever. Go to our Natural Philosophy Wiki. We have over 10,000 pages. And go to our magazine, Critical Thinkers Online Magazine. Those are all great things. So if obviously we know about the YouTube channel, that's great. Then we have our online discourse of fun. But let's take this one step at a time here. If you go up here, you can see our website. So let's go to beyondmainstream.com and .org. And here you have all of the problems in science. This is really good. If you click on here, you're going to get to all these problems in science. All right. Plate tectonics, black holes, relativity, the Big Bang, quantum mechanics, dark matter, stars, particle physics. And if you click on any of these, you're going to get a little blurb about the problems with it. And under here, you're going to get lots of articles, any article that's directly about Einstein. And the 2015 abstracts and technical papers and books we have. Now, this part is broken, okay? This is kind of broken, but again, I'm working on it, folks. I'm working on it. Obviously, I'm a busy guy like lots of people, but I just think this is really fantastic. You can pick any of these, the Big Bang, and you'll get the Big Bang will come up here. Hello, there we go. Problems with the Big Bang. And then you get your articles about it, and there's 58 books and abstracts. So very good. This has not been edited for quite a while. In fact, not Ian Cohen, I'm giving you no. Harry Ricker Jr. wrote a series of really great, he's a great writer. He is a very good science writer. I recommend highly. In fact, if you go over to about the editorial staff, oh, there we go, editorial staff, and you go to Ricker articles, I highly recommend you read these. There are 16 articles by Harry Ricker. Excellent, excellent. So if you talk to somebody and, they may be interested in, outside beyond mainstream kind of stuff, send them to beyondmainstream.org. And the name Beyond Mainstream was really a wonderful name, came from Mr. Time Guru himself. Anyways, I don't think he's here, but anyways, he came up with that name. Alzheimer's coming in. Let's take a look again. Let's take a look at the forum. I believe if you go to forum.naturalphilosophy.org, you're going to come to our forum. Come on, don't make me a liar. There we go. Now this forum is set up, and I've been talking to different people about using this. Jerry, I think in the beginning it was helping, but the forum is, you go and you can sign up. We approve the signups for you, and there's 2 pending reviews. I can go in there and do that. Let's see, pending reviews, needs approval, username. Oh, that was there's the boom. Some of these I got to make sure that they're real. That's why we do that. The reason we do not let people just sign up and go willy-nilly is because there's a lot of spam out there. One of my websites was being attacked literally for NLP++ was being attacked. So I would get rid of the user, and the user pops right back in WordPress. It's like, and I had to go through and find out where hidden in the code were they doing that. So the cleverness, unfortunately, the assistance will help people also hack as well. But here's the thing. We have lots and lots, I have been included on, for the last 6 months, maybe a year, in the email chains. And there's a couple, let me tell you the problems with email chains. The good thing is it's easy. Just throw in all the people you want to listen to, you hope will listen to you, and just start spamming them, because it is spam. It's not right. These people did not choose to be in that. We've talked about this before. And we don't have a good forum system. We got one of the best in the world now. Best in the world. So what people do when you're in the spam, you get spam like that, you want to leave. And one person says, can you not include me on the reply? Well, that doesn't work, because that person will reply and not have you. But the other person's going to look at another one from previous, reply to that, and you're back in the chain again. And it's really annoying. There's a lot of discussions that are interesting, but they're not for me. I don't think Ether's a bad way to build a universe. For me, that's my opinion. But if you want to talk about Ether, and you can do this, but the problem is we need to try and now organize it so it's correct, ethically correct. What isn't ethically correct is including people in your email chains. That's not ethical. So what can you do? You can sign up for the forum, get everybody else to sign up. You got to sign up. Things aren't free. People are lazy. But what's amazing? If you're so lazy, how can you write hours and hours of gigantic email chains and say, oh, I don't have the time to sign up for forum? I won't even say what I'd like to say there. But let's use this. This is why we have this. This is why people pay their monthly dues, their annual dues, have made donations, generous donations. And I want to thank everybody for that. We're actually in a good place financially. We've got a little money in a bank. It's not a ton. If you steal it, you're not going to go where. So we had actually happen in the NPA. But we do these things. We build these forums. We get these things. I spend a lot of time getting this. We actually spent money to have a person get this running. Those who are computer nerds, this is running on Docker on a Linux server. The Linux server is free for us. Our company for the NLP is donating that server for the CMPS. And on top of that, to have this run, we have the Docker, which is like a mini subcomputer on the server itself. And it's wonderful. It's a beautiful system. Why? Because let's get everybody in your email chain to sign up. Good. Now you make a topic. And what people can do is they can go in and say, hey, everybody, I'm in this topic. Go ahead, or a category. You can make even a category. If you make a category, this is the best way to do it. If you make a category like everybody signs up for the Ether category. And when a new topic appears in the Ether category, you will get a new topic. You'll get one email that says, oh, people are discussing this. And at that point, you look at it and go, do I already reply? No. You'll never see it again. Do you understand that? Look, I know we have real smart people in this group. Absolutely. And people actually I would like to talk with. If we sat down and talked with about 99.99% of the people that walk around there, I would want to talk with. I love talking with you guys. But that's the way it works. So if you have the category and you go in, everybody who likes Ether will sign up for the forum. You have to go through a process. We have to approve you. And I'm going to get somebody to help out. If you want to help out with that, I would greatly appreciate that. We'll make you an admin so we can have that approval. Once that's approval's done, you start a topic. How do you start a topic? Right at this blue button right here, right there. And you go ahead and type it in and type in what you want. At that point, everybody who's signed up for who's part of that category will get that first email. If you respond, it will then give you emails of people's responses. At that point, you're in the chain. And you can, at that point, say, I don't want it anymore. I don't like this, the way this discussion is going. In your email, you can do that. And you don't have to go to the forum. You can answer in the email itself, and it gets recorded in the forum. I don't know. Again, I don't know what to say. All I can say is people are lazy ass. And so get off your butts and do it. I mean, why organize this? I mean, do people love chaos? Do people love to be unethical? I mean, I'm hoping it's more that people who are just didn't have the means to do it Didn't know about it. So now we know about it. All you do is sign up. There are categories and click on the interest categories that you are interested in. And then those things will start to happen on their own. Okay. And those of you in email chains, because I'm going to start spamming the email chains I'm in. Believe me, I will. And yeah, you can exclude me and just say, F you, Dave, whatever. But I'm going to spam and say, hey, everybody, the great discussion going on. Hey, go to forum, log in there. And you know what's going to happen? Oh, heaven forbid. More people who could actually contribute to your ideas and your theory or whatever you're doing could actually join in. Instead of us being in this small group that gets older and older, slower and slower, and we lose people. So, okay, that's the forum pitch. And again, if you're interested in helping out, just email me at thehilster@gmail.com or david@thehilster.com or david@naturalphilosophy.org, whatever. And I'll be happy to have you come in and be an admin because I can't check it all the time. Okay. So I just think that's a really great series and situation. So very, very happy with that. Now let me show you the database. I don't know if I have a link to it. So let me go back to naturalphilosophy.org. Let me show you the database. Yeah, I don't have it. Oh, here's our wiki. Our wiki has 17,609 pages. I know for a fact there are only 10,000. So this has been somewhat hacked, but it's really good. It's still very good. If you go in there, you can find scientists, all the scientists, philosophy here, scientists. Click on that. We got lots of scientists. Okay, lots of them, and you can click on them and find out about them. Okay, some of them have very little because we don't have a lot of information on them. A lot of them are just let's see, Phil Borker. Let's see. Yeah, here's one, abstracts. But you go to my name or somebody else's name, and you'll be able to see a lot of information there. And you can put your, if you Google David D. Hilster, my profile from here comes up, and you can go in and do what you want. I don't have, let's see, I want a profile in Wikipedia. We're not going to get it, folks. I've invented a computer programming language that is going to be taught around the world. I can't get into Wikipedia yet. Yet we have all kinds of garbage in there, right? So anyways, this is a great place for you to put your name. Let me show you, let's see, let's go to Bob D. Hilster. There we go. To see his, and there you go. And here's professional career, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be speaking today. So yeah, you can go in there and edit and change it. And when you Google your name, this comes up. And in fact, if you ask the large language models, they're legally and illegally scraping the internet, training on documents like we found out, health documents. That's funny. It is a federal offense to scan and use and put public anything that's from HIPAA, the health insurance, the health institute. But anyways, you'll come up. So that's a good way to do things. Here, let's see if I can, natural impact, I think it's /db. Okay, here is the World Science Days Philosophers Database. Now, this is the database that's hooked into Beyond Mainstream. This is also, I took all this data at some time and put in, we have all the events, all the conferences, all for scientists outside the mainstream. This was Greg Volk and my passion from 2008 on. And so I've been working on this, and we've been trying to resurrect this. The data's there. That's the good news. But the data has 50 tables in the SQL database. So it's a very comprehensive database, but it's not easy. And I wrote all this PHP code, and this is it kind of running. But so it is there, but it's not really announced because it's, but this is a real database, and we're trying to bring it to the forefront. We're trying to get funding for that. I know Greg Volk has. All right. So I'm going to remove that and let's go on. So I hope that gave you a good idea of our websites. And please sign up for the forum. Please, everybody, if you do anything from this, sign up for the forum. And yeah, we need to prove you. So I will do that afterwards because I'm sure everybody who's watching this is signing up for the forum, right? Right. Sure. I'm sorry. I'm cynical, but it's worth it, guys. It's really worth it. All right. So let me get back to presentation. And so now we're going to talk about the 4 universal emotions my dad and I worked on and have been working on. And then my dad's going to have a talk, which is about 18 minutes. So, and it's recorded. So it'll be easy, easy peasy. Stop the screen. Now I'm going to share my screen. A window, really. And this is the window. Okay, so we talked about our new websites. So let's take, oh, we already did. So I'm going to talk about the, oh man, you know what? I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to get rid of the slideshow animations, use timings. Sorry. There you go. All right, so I'm going to talk about the 4 universal emotions. As you know, some of you know, we published in 2021 what we called the Principia Mathematica 2, which was basically an extension of Newton's work, where he didn't have a model for light or magnetism or gravity or electricity. Then we came up with this. It wasn't something we looked for or wanted to do. I've always been looking for it, but we did come up with these things. And in 2021, we published this. We got like 2.5 on our reviews out of 5 stars. It's something that if you don't understand the basic part of this, it's like reading Latin. So the people who know it, it's like, wow, this is really cool. In fact, we give lectures, my dad and I, to general public who understands it more than people in the CMPS and people in mainstream or mainstream science, obviously, too. So, but it turned out in a long car ride back in a year later, I said, I had 8 hours with my dad next to me. I said, Dad, what did we really discover? What's the simplest way to find out, what we did? And I remember in the first book talking with Dr. Andreas Cease. He's an MBM member, really great guy. Love the guy. He's always coming out with books on Ampere. He does real experiments with electricity, which is really great. And he said, Dave, I gave him the book before we published in 2021. He goes, you need to put the gravity, your models for these 4 things on your cover. I said, okay, that's what I did. So I thought about that, and I ended up saying, what we really discovered are really what I would call 4 universal motions that we recast our particle model into the 4 universal motions, and that they happen at all levels. We stand on the backs of a lot of great people, but all of these motions happen at all levels. So you have gravitic random motion of particles or bodies, and no particle is the smallest particle. All these particles are, like we believe, is the same as Glenn Borchert's infinite universe theory, which is there are no partless parts. There is no such thing. You can get down and there's one thing that's one particle. It's not divisible. It's turtles all the way down, turtles all the way up. And so we looked at that and says, this is happening at all levels. And actually, we have some clues that this model it does say something in a good way. So it's kind of fun. Because I'm an artist, I thought this logo is pretty cool. And if you haven't seen it, there are 4, of course. It looks like 4 arrows pointing out. But if you look at the negative, there are 4 arrows pointing in, and there's like a particle in the middle. So that's pretty cool. And if you want to know about our 4 motions, you can go to 4motions.org. We've got some actual animations that are not graphic. They're actually calculated animations about the particle. So the 4 universal motions. We stand on the shoulders of these people. One of the things I tell people is if you stay in your little lab and never interact with anybody, you're not going to go forward with your own ideas. And we, again, my dad and I were not looking for any of this. We were both just looking for physical models of stuff. And Glenn Borkard's infinite universe theory, no smallest or largest objects, there are infinite levels. We absolutely believe that. Yonel Deneu's underwater experiments, they blew my mind. Both of these people were one of the few times, 3 or 4 times, my mind was absolutely exploded. Expanding Earth was another one. But Yonel Deneu's underwater experiments, have you seen? I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And Jeff Yee's energy wave theory, his work at the subatomic level was really helpful for us to crack what we think physically is going on there. I mean, real physics, not equations, zero equations. And then my dad, other thing that blew my mind, exploded my mind, was my dad when we had this talk back in 2015, and he goes, "Oh yeah, light's like this." And I go, I mean, I said, and then afterwards I said, "Dad, you just you gave a solution," because, I'm not into, oh, I've solved this, or this is a fact. But he gave a solution for the wave particle duality, and that was amazing. And from there, I came up with the idea that gravity, light, magnetism, electricity are the same particle. I didn't want to believe it. I just didn't want to believe it. But anyways, this is how I came up with that. I was thinking after my dad had that, and I was like looking at all these 4 things. I go, I thought about this. I go, how fast do they travel? Well, light we know, electricity we know, you can measure it in the lab. Gravity we know, there are Chinese, if you look up Chinese gravity experiments, full eclipse 2009, whatever, they show that gravity and light, both gravity travels at the speed of light, rise at the same time as the light does. And magnetism took me a while. I go, how can you measure the speed of magnetism? We accelerate particles close to the speed of light, but never get there. So magnetism must happen. And so I came up with this conclusion. Well, there's 2 different things you can think about. Either something makes all these particles travel at the speed of light. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, how could that be? Or they're all the same particle. And the only difference is the way they move. So that's what I came up with. I remember walking into my dad's bedroom / work office. I don't remember even where it was at the time. And I go, this is crazy. But because we don't believe in charge, we don't believe in any of that stuff. The charge, charge is a arbitrary attribute on arbitrary particles, as Dr. Alexander Unziker says. A lot of us don't believe that charge is a convention. But I said, gosh, can it be that these are the same particles? That's crazy. And it didn't take much. And he goes, no, it's not a crazy idea. And then when we look back on our book, and it's like, no, it's not. And in fact, it solves a ton of problems, which I'll show you in one example, which I show to audiences who don't even like science, the average people. So let's start at the 4 motions. This is gravitic motion. If you go to our website, there's actually these particles are generated. This is an animation. This is a looping animation. But what's really amazing is in these 4 universal motions, what organizes the universe is random motion. And if you think about that it's exactly the opposite of what we think, which is we get down to electrons, neutrons, protons, then quarks. All these are Fetid particles, and this and that, and then you have all these particles, these properties, half spin, color, strangeness, all that stuff. No, at all levels of the universe, this is very important. At all levels of the universe, what organizes it is random. That makes so much sense. Things blow up. Things that have been put together stay together for a while. They blow up just like suns do. Blow up, and they're spewing out what? Parts of atoms. So what we call G1 particles. It's pretty cool. But anyways, that's pretty amazing. So it happens at all levels, and there are infinite gravitic motions. There are different particles. You go down, they go faster and faster. The level 2 gravity at the quantum level or the subatomic, it's got to be faster, and the one below that has to be faster still. So there are things that travel faster than light. The shadow effect, this is actually a calculation. What you're seeing is actually just a recording of it. But if you go to our website, we are using P4, I think it's called. It's a package for JavaScript, or no, Python, that you can run. So if you go to 4motions.org, you'll see this. And these are actual running programs. There's calculations of all 500 or 1,000 little particles. A major part of the particles will hit it and move them. The other ones will actually go through. That's why you see some on top of it. So this is showing the shadow effect. I push them a little bit in the direction and they end up coming together. Yeah, it's not in a perfectly straight line because this is a calculation with a few things. But this is a real calculation. This is not a trick. This is not a graphic that I made up. Interesting enough, gravitic motion, like you said, controls everything in the world, and we have an intuition for it. Every human being has an intuition for gravitic motion. Things fall to the earth. If you grab something and throw it, you have a curved path. If you throw it really hard, you get into orbit. If you throw it even harder, you go throw it and it goes around the moon, which is kind of appropriate right now, which is really happening. All that that can be explained by random gravitic motion. So, which is pretty amazing. So it organizes stuff. And my father came up with this nice diagram where you have something that can curve, something that can orbit, something that can pass through, because what 99.999% of atomic structure is empty, and you can also have collisions. And so, do we have any evidence that what my dad and I are saying, that gravitic motion is at different levels of the universe? Yep. And people are going to say, well, I will answer this question before you go off yelling at me. Atomic orbits are not simple orbits. Like, yep, they're not. Do we have an explanation? Yep. Who helped us with that? Jeff Yee. Yep. So yes, you can have a physical orbiting system that is very complex, that the orbits are real complex. And that's what happens exactly in atoms. So what you see here, of course, are on the right-hand side, you see the sun and the planets going around, and you have these particles in random motions, which we think is the electron, the photon, the magneton, if there was even a name, and the electron and the graviton. So all of those are the same particles. Just the way they move makes them different. So anyways, they're all going in random directions, and we get this inverse square law function from Newton. And we see that. Now, if we go down a level, we say, oh, we have Coulomb's law. It's an inverse square law equation. Yes, it's got charge, but again, you can do this without charge. Absolutely can. And so you have an electron, and yes, it's in a cloud. I'll explain that later. But if you look at it, you go, is there any proof? Well, yeah. Why is it the same? How do you have a force if it's caused by real physical motions, physical things? How could it give you? Well, because it's a random gravitic motion. They're a different set of particles down for one level down in the universe. So those particles, the ones we call at the top level, because the gravity is the kind of motion that organizes it, we call a G1 particle. So the G1 particle is electricity, photon, it does all that. G2 particle, which is a level down, is faster than light. In fact, they're measuring nuclear action at a distance or whatever, and tremendous. Yeah, well, guess what? If you have things to keep an electron in motion, it's got to be going way faster than an electron. The electron's going at the speed of light. So that's what we have. So when you look at it now, with our model, it says, oh, this is easy. They're just two gravitic motions. One has a G1 particle, goes to the speed of light on the average. It doesn't always travel at the speed of light. And we have gravity 2, which goes way faster than the speed of light, way smaller, that keeps that level of orbits going. Okay. Now I'm going to get back later on the stuff, so keep that on the back burner. Okay. And so we have magnetic motion, and magnetic motion are these things being caught in orbits. And you go, what is that? Well, I coined it. I came up with the name Deneu effect after Lionel Deneu. And the Deneu effect, I say that magnetic motion is simply motion that orbits. And it doesn't have to be around and simple. It can be very complex orbits. So why does this exist? Well, he's got a number of experiments, but I think the best one is he has rotating cylinders in water that's held by down weights. They rotate. when those are in opposite directions, they attract, and when they are in the same direction, they repulse. So he came up with a physical model. Of course, it's sitting in what he calls an ether. He uses ether. Close, we think, but no cigar. But this does work in the four universal motions, because you got to believe ether, and ether's got to stay around. We're using water. It's squunched between the Earth's gravitational field and the Earth itself. Ether in space is not going to stay in the one place unless you invent magical attributes with magical properties, etc. So, we don't have the ether theory like him. So this is what I came up with from Yunao Dunu's going to our particle model. That is, when you have orbiting particles and they're in the same direction as in the left, you're going to have collisions. Now you can imagine comets orbiting around in a giant loops, and they come together. If they're coming at each other, there's going to be a disturbance, and that's actually going to cause a repulsion. And the attraction is, if they come together, you get more in the middle, the gravitation is going to bring them together. So when they are in opposite directions, they're really coming together in a reinforcement, and that's how you get repulsion and attraction. And it gets to be like at the subatomic level, that's how you get polarization, and why it's so hard to calculate. We don't have any real ways other than kind of empirical equations to try to do this. We can't model it. In the future, if people believe the four universal motions is the way the universe is working, then we can make models of that. So here are animations. No, these are not, it's not in a gravitic field. This is just to give people an idea of how that is. So this is an animation, it is not calculations. It's only it's calculations to make these things happen. It's not telling why they orbit. We know that orbiting happens because of bigger bodies and a gravitic field that makes that happen. So that's repulsion. And attraction, you can see the reinforcement happening when two. In fact, we know that orbits do behave in nice ways, because if you look at the orbits of the moons of Jupiter, they get synchronized. So you want to ask, well, how do we get magnetic fields? Well, magnetic fields happen, and this is a total conceptual conceptual showing of what we think is going on, and that is basically you have atomic nucleons, which are there in structure. Electrons orbit around them, but they also go in a bigger sense. And I'll show you how to intuitively look at that. But that's what we think is happening. Take a balloon, rub it on the wall. What's happening? The G1 particles, which are, we call it charged. They're not charged. They're just, then they get into orbits around the balloon. They get into orbits around the wall. Those orbits create the Danu effect, which there's attraction. Once those unstable orbits, which are not can be sustained for a little while, the G1 particles go off into the universe, into the random soup of, you would call it ether, but we don't call it ether, we call it a gravitic field. That's how we think what's going on. And magnetic motions, if you were looking at the Earth and all as an atom, we would say it's the moon going around the Earth is a magnetic motion. The Earth all the planets going around the sun are magnetic motions. We call them orbits. Same way, of course, you can see with the atom itself. Then the big one my dad came up with, this is a really nice visualization, that light is not waves in ether, because you have the problem, of course, of lasers and things like that, wave-particle duality. These are particles and they're waves. But waves can only happen with more than one particle. That's why the photon never worked. You can't have one photon and say it's light. Why? You can send signals. If I send carrier pigeons in waves with a frequency that you can measure, I can send any signal with luminic waves. We do that all the time in fiber optics. And that's one of the reasons. If you go to fourmotions.org, you can see where I think one of the things that my father in his electrical engineering was dealing with had him and gave him why he came up with the luminic wave, which are just waves of particles. And atoms, they release G1 particles, we think the G1's way smaller than the electron, so that you have a hydrogen. It's not just one particle. It's like quantum particles that fits around that. But regardless, this is the luminic motion, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And here's what we used in our book, which is really nice. So I always, when we're talking to general audiences, talking about the four motions, we go, put your hand on your arm and just hold pressure. That's gravity. Now take it and hit it like this. That's light. That's the only difference. So why can't you look up into the sky and see gravity? You can't, because it's not in waves. So it's interesting, white light. My dad drew this first picture. This is a kind of interesting back and forth my dad had and I had when we were doing the four universal motions. And he goes, I was trying to do white light. What is white light? I go, that's a good question. And so he drew this I made a program in Adobe. I used Adobe Illustrator. In Adobe Illustrator, you can make programs to write stuff. In fact, it's interesting that the four universal motions that I have in my artwork are actually programs I wrote to draw random particles that do things. So here's a line, follow it, make a luminic wave, make a regular electric wave. Interesting. But so I drew a program that would kind of randomly put, different blobbish kind of waves. Now I said, well, Dad, let me take that and make those into what would be a true physical model of these waves. If you notice that blue's closer together, red's further apart, green's kind of in the middle. So I took those same lines, but then I looked at it and then something hit me. I said, Dad, let me take away the color on that and let's look what we have. Boom, white light. So basically white light is the atoms are releasing in waves the atomic structure. That's why we have things that like light emitting diodes. We are sending a signal and its atomic structure gets rid of them because it sets up these motions and it sends out G1 particles in waves. And so this is our model for white light in the four universal motions. G2, my dad was thinking, well, if light is being bent in a prism, if you look, there's two things going on. He said, if light is being bent, you're going to have something that has to be faster than light to bend it, because we believe everything's physical. So for something to hit light and make it bend, go in a different direction, it's got to be going faster than the speed of light. So we got the G2 gravity at the next level, and that bends light. It's the same reason that photon, electron, they're all the same. If it gets captured around a nucleus, we call that an electron. If it's in light, it's coming in waves, we call that a photon. And what's interesting is that if you look at a rectangular prism, it doesn't split the light into a rainbow, whereas a triangle does. Well, if you look at these as gigantic things in the universe, huge thing, light years across, well, the gravitational field is going to be higher in the middle than it is on the edges. And so it doesn't have a uniform gravitic field if it were a thing in the universe. If you go down a level, same thing, that those atomic structures are arranged in a way that the gravitic field, because we do not point mass, the gravitational field for this triangle is not uniform. One of the biggest, that's why we have dark matters, because they can't understand that galaxies have gravitic fields that are very different from a point mass. And because of that, oh no, the stars aren't spinning at the right velocity. Well, it's because you're treating. A great paper from the CMPS was by a Chinese gentleman who actually took the arms of the galaxy and broke it down into pieces, and they made he made it and calculated, and it turns out that the in a galactic gravitational field, which is not a point mass, it's circular, that the stars travel at a different speed on the edges. Newton does it. No dark energy, no dark matter needed. The other thing that I found later on, and that you can go to my YouTube channel, Dissident Science, look up dark matter. They found two galaxies that didn't need dark matter. Why? because they were spherical galaxies. The point mass and the calculations work out because they're spherical. It's like, it's so freaking obvious. It's just, you want to just, I just want to shoot myself sometimes. But again, and how does this work in ours? Well, the atomic structure, if you look at them, nucleons, imagine they are like suns. Here you see these suns. And what happens, this white light's coming at it, and you get more waves bent where the gravitational field is more, because the gravitational field of a prism is a diminishing G2 field. And so what you have, a gravitational field. And so what you have is these waves coming at it. They're going to be more, so you get more in the blue, and you get all the, this is something I hacked. What we use is, when we're using the 4 universal motions, we call it hacking the universe, when we can explain a phenomenon that is unexplainable before. With it, well, they had no physical model for light or gravity or magnetism, especially electricity. So electric flow. So electric flow is just the flow of it. So what it means is G1 particles are guided along some path, and then they leave somewhere else, basically. Or they get caught in atoms in a battery, for instance, or whatever. But electric flow is that when you have orbits and atomic structures that can keep things in orbits, and those things are useful and they become in atomic structures, etc., then these flows are called magnetic flow. So this is my dad and I's least favorite graphic in science. I mean, again, I have a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, so I know mathematics. And this is just, it's absurd. And we all talk about it. Magnetic fields are perpendicular. This is nothing. This is nothing. It doesn't tell us what anything is. Somebody says, you take this to an average audience and say, hey, this is it. Oh, what is it? Explain me a physicality to it. Oh, can we? Yeah, we can. So what happens is, again, I'll talk about the atomic structures, but to atoms, when they're in lattices like this, especially copper atoms, what happens is the complex orbits that happen because of the G2 gravitational fields, the G2 magnetic fields, which are down below, just like a nucleus has a magnetic field like the Earth does. These things allow for the G1 particles to be very complex, and you get those, and they get together. The certain of these arrangements allow for the easy flow of these G1 particles to go through the wire, but they also end up going outside the wire and literally looping. Just, that's a magnetic field. So not all the G1 particles stay in the wire, and they go in a spiral form. So they're not circular like this. But when we look at the magnetic field, we measure it, that's what we think. Well, what's really happening is these same particles are just orbiting outside the wire as well. That's what's happening. So the way I visualize it is, imagine all these suns in the universe, and they're all lined up in this grid. And you get these, like these tubes, these flows. So if you send a comet through there, it's going to get it. If you send it in a different way, it may be caught by one of the atoms, or it may go off. And so it may not, it's coming at it like a battery shoving these particles at it, and I mean a comet at it, and then it may start going around around this. And imagine this is a wire, it may just start this entire circular spiral movement. So you do the same thing with atoms. Well, you have a G2 gravitic field, super fast, much smaller, and it's keeping the G1 particles doing the same things, the atomic nucleons. And I'll talk about how the complexity can come in there. So mainstream science, when we talk about it, we show how ridiculous the physical models are. The most ridiculous one is from this, because All right, guys, I'm sorry. Happens, disconnected. Um, I'm going to go out one more time, all right? Because I can leave it there. That's fine. I'll just leave it there. Let's go back to presenting where we were. It just cut me off. So share screen. Window. Okay. Not lost. All righty. So different. I didn't want to spend time to choose. I got a bunch of cameras. So, all right. This is what we do when we talk to mainstream, to regular audiences. You guys still hearing me? Thumbs up. Can see me? Oh, do see. Thank you. Thank you, Ian. Ian's falling asleep. Kidding. Anyways, smartphone. Here's the problem with the smartphone. What do? We take our phone. I'm not going to pick it up again because something happened there. And we put it on our charger. So this is what happens. Electrons travel into the coil. Of course, they're not really electrons. Currents are the holes left behind by electrons, which is bizarre as heck. They travel along around the coil. The electrons magically create a magnetic field. We don't tell it what a magnetic field is. We just say it's there. It's a force. Well, we know it's there. We can measure it. Sure. But if you ask a person what's happening, let's look at this first. So magically, electrical moving electrons present and create a magnetic field that magically induces, because induce means absolutely nothing, induces the electron flow in your phone. And those electrons go into the atomic orbits of your battery. That's probably one of the only things that are true. Then you got another piece of magic. Then those electrons are sent, or actually holes, flow toward the LEDs, and the electrons in the atoms change levels, and photons appear. Magnetic fields created magically. Current induced by magnetic fields, magic. You can say it's charge. You have no explanation for it. These are just arbitrary attributes, we say. And then photons come out of atoms. Now, I think I had one person raise their hand and say, does that mean there are photons in atoms? This is what we get into because we don't. So here's what a person understands. They put their phone on a charger and the electricity gets into their phone. That's it. End of story. Otherwise, if you have electric current inducing electrons moving, are you kidding? All right. Anyways, I want to get to my dad's talk. Again, it's 18 minutes here. What do we have? G1 particles throw through a wire, and they also spiral. Anytime you have a wire, they're going to go through. They're going to be guided by the nucleons of the atoms because of the way they're set up. Certain atomic structures, when they're put up into lattices, into metals like copper, it conducts. It just does. We don't know why. We don't know the position of all those things, but that's why. But they also spiral around. So there are literally G1 particles, or quote unquote electrons, that are in the air. They're there. And they come in contact with the spiral in your phone. And they're captured. So they're actually the G1 particles that are going into your charger end up in your phone. Buh. Everyone understands. When I talk to people, they go, that makes sense. What mainstream physics says is that doesn't make any sense. And then they get captured into the atomic structures. Once they get to the G1 particles, the G1 particles get to the LEDs. Those LEDs, when they're bombarded by these G1 particles, release them in frequencies. So the G1 particles that come from your wall, go into your phone, into your battery, are released. Oh my gosh. Where else are they getting the electrons if it's induced? It's in your case. Actually, it just keeps recycling the electrons. Think about it, folks. Okay, how does atomic structure work? Well, we don't think it's only one G1 particle. That's the reason why in the periodic table that you have non-integer values. They're close. because we think they're a quanta. If you go and really look at the electron, they say it's exactly this. No, if you look at their experiments, there's a lot of assumptions there. So the electron can easily be a quanta of particles, what we would call an electron. So we believe that there are lots more than them, and they're smaller than we think. And so you have the Jeff Yee has these atomic arrangements, and these atomic arrangements work and cause these different particles. How can you have a gravitational field do this? Well, that's because you have a G2 field, faster than the speed of light, smaller. Atomic nucleons. There's no charge needed here. They stay together by the gravitation. Well, it turns out that the nucleons probably and most likely have G2 magnetic fields. That's what keeps them together. It keeps them together in formations that are kind of fun. Do we know what these are in four universal motions? We don't. So when you put the whole thing together, you have a G2 gravitic field keeping the G1 particles going around. Each of the protons, and they may even have subparticles there, whatever you want to say, that if you believe in quarks, they all have G2 gravitic field, G2 magnetic field, G2 electric field, and those keep the G1 particles orbiting in non-regular orbits. And that's why you can have, yes, a planet model of the atom, but it's way more than planet. It's got magnetism involved, and of course, it's movements. The G2 particles are the same. If they're moving randomly, they're gravitic. If they're moving in orbits, they're magnetic. If they're same thing. So you get these magnetic motions just from our book, and so you can even have. That's why you can get static electricity. These things, the polarity of atoms, are all of these motions going on of G1 particles. Those motions are loops. Loops are magnetic, and those magnetic, so the clouds are really magnetic clouds of G1 particles, and those will cause attraction, repulsion, depending on how they're set up. Okay, so again, if you want to know more about the four universal motions, you can go to fouruniversalmotions.org. I suggest we have a 5-part series on how my dad and I came up with it, and talking about the entire universe, four universal motions in those videos. I edited the heck out of them so they kind of flow quickly, because I'm terrible when I do these talks. A lot of times there's pauses and all that stuff. Okay, so let's see my dad's talk. My dad talks about himself. He's the creator of the luminic wave. I called it luminic. I don't know if that word really existed before, but I termed it magnetic. I call it luminic. Applied the particle model of the four universal motions to electronic components. When we first did our book, I said, one of the things we could really see is if this model really works in electronic components, because we have no physical explanations for that in electricity and these things. We have lots of empirical equations that work kind of well. Can we glean new things from it? Can we explain things that weren't explained before? So we can describe behaviors not described by modern physics and produce new outcomes, like current is not constant around a circuit. Okay, so I am going to take this down and bring up his video. It's about 18 minutes long. So let me remove this, stop the screen share, go to a video file, which I know now is the way to go when you're doing StreamYard. You can't do it from inside a PowerPoint with a video clicking to anywhere. No sound ever comes out. So wait a minute. It may take a little bit longer to where I need to go. Holy cow. Gee whiz, now I've lost where it was. Gosh darn it, it was supposed to be in there. Oh, there, oh, no, that's not it. Where did I put that? I'm sorry, folks. I'm going to bring up my dad here, just on stage. Hey, Dad, how you doing?
Okay, Dave, how are you?
I'm trying to find your video now to make sure this is going to work. Yeah, So where did I put this? Where did I put this? Where did I put this? Dissident science. I am so sorry, folks. I had that set up and I had a problem with my computer and everything here. What's it called? The finding. Let's see if I can do it. There it is. There it is. I got it. Okay. Open file location. There it is. Sorry, folks, about that. I will go ahead and do that. Video file. As much as you set these things up. All right. Okay. Date the right version. All right, folks, here we go.
Hello, my name is Robert D. Hilster, and I'm going to describe how a circuit finds the right current. As for background information, I am an electrical engineer, graduated from the University of Michigan in 1960 with a BS degree in engineering physics, and spent 42 years designing electronic circuits for telecommunications, specifically electronic switching systems. I retired in 2001 and spent most of my time studying gravity, but in 2015, I discovered a new concept for light which got my son's attention. That started a discussion of science between David and me that has lasted for years. And in the future, I hope to have a presentation on this model for light. Okay, so the common way for engineers to find the current for a circuit is to use Ohm's law, which states that the electric current through a conductor is directly proportional to the voltage across it and inversely proportional to its resistance. As an engineer, I can use this Ohm's law and calculate the current. But the question I'm asking here is, how would the circuit find the right current? Can any component see all the other components and then calculate the current? No, of course, components and batteries, they can't think or calculate anything. So no, the components can't. Individual components can't find the current. There must be another way. I'm going to use what I call the sum of G1s. The added G1s from a battery must equal the lost G1s from resistors to find a stable circuit. Note that G1s are electrons without a negative charge. So the G1s added by the battery here, and I got some numbers here. These are fake numbers related to the value. Here's 90 G1s being emitted from the battery, 80 G1s being lost in the 8 ohm resistor, and 10 being lost in the 1 ohm resistor. But there must be another way, and this is the way that I am going to suggest that a circuit finds the right current. So let's define the particles that we're talking about. This is not terminology you're quite familiar with. N1 is a proton and a neutron that does not have a positive charge. It is the particle that's used in the nucleus of an atom. G1 is an electron that does not have a negative charge. It is used to make electricity, light, magnetic fields, and gravity. All of these events move at speed c, so they are all built using the same particle, the G1 particle. To emphasize this, son David made a graphic of the 4 different events: gravity, magnetic field, electricity, and light. And each of these drawings is made up of a tiny circle with a tail in which direction it's moving, the particle is moving. And you can see that we're using the same particle for each one: gravity, electricity, and light, and magnetism. So now we got the particles defined. Let's start by setting an example of a stable circuit. Setting the value of 0.1 volt per G1 will set the number of G1s from the battery at 90 and a loss of G1s at 80 from the 8 ohm resistor and 10 from the 10 ohm resistor. The circuit is stable because when we start at A, assuming for example A is 0, then you get add 90, subtract 80, you're down to 10, subtract 10, you're down to 0. And the circuit is stable because the numbers lost in the components match the number of G1s added by the battery. Now that's how we know it's done. But how does a circuit find the right current? For a simple battery resistor circuit, for a simple battery resistor circuit, the circuit always finds the right current. It's not random chance. It is repeatable. No matter what the values of the components are, it is a deterministic process. It finds the right answer every time. So what is this process? The particle model has an answer. By the way, if there is another solution, please let me know. You can write me an email at robert@thehilster.com. Okay, I'm using what Dave and I call the particle model, TPM. And we make some assumptions about this model that is not quite the standard way that electrical engineers talk about circuits. For example, number one, the electron has no negative charge. Number two, the proton has no positive charge. As a comment, those two are based on the fact that we don't really know what physical property is part of the electron that makes it negative. And we don't know what the physical part of the proton is that makes it positive. And yet we still label it this way. So, but the particle model says, hey, wait a minute, that's not very clear. We're going to assume something different. We're going to assume in number three that the interactions between particles and atoms and molecules are mechanical and gravitational. That's it. Not electrical, not magnetic, not electrostatic, but just mechanical and gravitational. G1 gravity is Newtonian gravity. G2 gravity holds the atom and molecule together. This replaces the strong nuclear force, which is a term we're used to calling, but we don't call it a gravity, we just call it a strong force. Particle model says, no, this is a level of gravity. There's a level of gravity at Newtonian level, that's the level where we feel it, and there's a G2 gravity that performs a few other functions. Okay, another aspect of the particle model is that as G1s move through a component, they can be lost. Now, that's not taught in electrical engineering circles. Electrons do not automatically leave the circuit. They stay there. And here we have a simple example of A being the number of G1s entering this, say, resistor, a small number, lowercase b, hitting and leaving. Remember, this is mechanical or gravitational, so the particle can hit and leave. And then what's left over as it leaves is the number of them are C. Now, if you don't really like the idea that electrons can leave a circuit, I remind you of Einstein's photoelectric effect. Given the correct amount of force, electrons can escape a conductor. This is a conductor. This is a force. He put enough energy into the conductor that he got electrons to be emitted. So yes, it can happen. Okay, the TPM theory proposes that the electron can be lost by a simple mechanical collision. Hence, the current is not constant. Yeah, we're taught as engineers that current around the loop is constant. And even when you measure it, it's pretty close to constant. But TPM says, no, some of them are lost, even if it's only small enough for us to detect with very accurate instruments. What we need is a circuit diagram that shows the flow of G1s through the circuit and the gain and loss of G1 particles. And this is the example. It's the same one I used earlier, where the volts per G1 is 0.1, meaning that a 9-volt battery is going to put out 90 G1s in a given time interval, some specific small time interval. It gives out 90 in that same interval, loses 80 here and 10 here. And that's an example of their being lost. Now the sum of the G1s gained and lost equals 0. The circuit is stable when the addition of G1s by the battery equals the loss of G1s by the resistors. This is very similar to the sum of voltages equaling 0. But I'm not going to try to explain it, but you can't use Kirchhoff's law and show how a circuit gets balanced. Yeah, you can add up the voltages around this circuit using Kirchhoff's law, and it comes out to be the sum is 0. But that doesn't help the circuit. The circuit doesn't know about what voltages are at the battery or being lost in the resistor. It doesn't know any of that. So the circuit, you can find that using Kirchhoff's law, but the circuit can't. To show how the circuit stabilizes, only the number of G1s added or lost is required, but the total number of G1s flowing can be much higher. To understand how many could be flowing, consider this definition for 1 amp of current. 1 ampere is equal to approximately 6.22 times 10 to the 18th electrons per second. So if I have 1 amp of current flowing around the circuit, and I believe if I go back, you'll see that this is 9 volts and this is 2K, 3K, and 4K, or if I can't, yeah, it's 4K, 3K, and 2K. You can see that, yeah, from a circuit point of view, there should be 1 amp flowing around that circuit, which means there's 6.242 times 10 to the 18th electrons flowing around each point in the circuit every second. So we look at equations so we can develop what I call some spreadsheets to show how this model explains how the circuit finds the current that it needs to have. Now, with electrical circuit, to get the current, here the sum of the voltages are 0. That's what this says, but the current flowing is equal to voltage divided by the 3 resistors, and you can get the current. And electrically, you can calculate this yourself. As an engineer, you can build a circuit and measure it, and it all works out. Now, but in the case of the particle model, it's the sum of the G1s added or lost that is equal. And so the red is highlighted. To get B, you're adding to A this many G1s. You divide the volts by the volts per G1 and you get G1s. And IFR is the percent of G1s lost per ohm. So you multiply B times IFR times R3, you get the number of G1s lost in the R3 resistor. D is the number of G1s lost in the R2 resistor, and E is the number of G1s lost in the R1 resistor. And to complete the loop, the last E, which is here, you've just gone all the way around and now you're at the last E, is equal to the next A. So from that, you can build spreadsheets. The following spreadsheets show that no matter the starting value of G1s, the result is the same. The value of G1 is the volts assigned to each G1. Since this value is not known, it is set to 0.1 volts per G1. I set it there. That's my value, and you can put your own value there and work out your own spreadsheet. Also, the value of IFR, the interaction factor of a resistor, is not known, and I set it to 0.0001% per ohm. Both these charts end with the value. When you develop the charge and you go through a number of cycles, they both end at 56.103. 389X. Well, the last digit, it doesn't match, but close enough. So here is the spreadsheet where we show I'm using those TPM equations that I just described. And I got 3 resistors, 2K, 3K, 4K. Start with 100 G1s, arbitrary number. Go through as many cycles as you need to, in this case 20. And when you get down after 20 cycles, you applying the equations, you end up with 56.103, 8963, starting with 100. It goes down. If you start with 50, it goes up. But you end up, after 20 cycles, with the same number, 56.103, 38961. So no matter where the circuit starts, no matter how many G1s the battery puts out, well, if it's low, it'll increase until it gets a balance. If it's high, it'll decrease until it gets the same balance. So no matter how many the battery starts with, doesn't matter, it will get there. That takes time. It's not zero, but when you look at a small circuit and the amount of time it takes for the electron to go around the circuit one time, you realize that these 20 cycles are pretty fast. Okay, this is a similar chart, but I took out the resistor values and just kept the points on the A is the input to the battery, B is the output of the battery, C is the output of the first resistor, then the second, and then the third, and then back to the battery. So I'm just showing the same values as the previous charts, but with the resistors not shown. And so we have the total loss equals gained. Total loss equals gained from the previous. Oh, I see. Forgot what I was doing. I got the last line. I'm looking at this last line here. And you can see, let me just read it out loud. 146, 87, and 70, and then 56. You remember those numbers. I'm taking those numbers, 146, 87, 70, and 56, and determining how many are lost through each resistor. Of course, from A to B, you gain 90. From B to C, you lose 58. From C to D, you lose 17. And from D to E, you lose 14. You gain 90 here, and the sum of these three are also 90, and so the circuit is balanced. It finds a balance by getting the sum of the G1s added equal to the number lost in the resistors. Comment: because the values of VG1 and IFR were selected by me, the specific numbers in the charts are not correct. But by assigning values, the charts show how the circuit finds a final value and reaches a stable circuit. How to find the real values of VG1 and IFR has not been determined. I've thought about it. It's one of those problems that bother me. Doesn't change about the theory. It just means I haven't got the value, the real values that you could find in a real circuit. Thank you for your interest. My name is Robert D. Hilster, and
Hey, Dad. Sorry about that. I cut you. My Robert and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. Pushed the button too fast. Can you hear me?
oh yeah, I got you.
So I think one of the interesting things about what you do in that spreadsheet, which are really can kind of pass by people, is though each line in your spreadsheet is really a transitional phase, isn't that?
Repeat. It's quiet.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that in your spreadsheet, you have you have lines in your spreadsheet, and at each line you have changing numbers. So you're really mapping out the numbers during the transitional phase. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, each cycle, the G1s go around one time. That's one line. And the end of E, the value E, is then posted to the next value A, and you go through another line. So uh, it represents a very short period of time for the G1 to go around one time. So each line is a time cycle, and it tells you the different amount of G1s that are being gained or lost at that particular time interval. And after, in this case, 20 of these intervals, you find that the value of G1s floating around add up to the 90. You battery gauge 90, and if you look at what's lost and lost and lost, and you add them together, you get minus 90, and that's a stable circuit. So it finds the stable condition based on the sum and loss of G1s, not the total G1s flowing, but the gain and loss. And that was the essence of the solution for a stable circuit.
Well, the other thing is, I'm going to speak loud for folks because I think is not. The other thing is too is that when you're calculating the losses, one of the things I was very fascinated by circuits and our model that kind of, I'm not an electrical engineer, but I learned electrical engineering through the model, is that the amount of particles would be called, people would call electrons, or we call GO1s, going through the circuit, and the manipulation of the change of those, the manipulations and losses and whatever gains, whatever it is in the circuit, are very minuscule compared to the actual flow. Is that right? That
Yes,
is, in a
exactly.
circuit, you've got lots of electricity, if you want to say it in layman's terms, going around, and the only thing we're doing is we're changing little bits of it. So we're not, we're not drastically cutting off, like a resistor doesn't get rid of a third of all of the stuff of the electricity. It's
You
small
kind of
changes.
can think of the circuit as having a base that's this high, and then when you add the battery, you get more. And then when you go through with one resistor, it comes down, and then it comes down, and it comes down back to where it started. But as long as it comes back to where it starts and it goes through the same gain and loss, you're just repeating the same cycle over and over and over. But those are only what's added and what's lost. That's what's controlling the stability, not the amount of current, which is valid because I could pick a whole different set of resistors. I could have a smaller base or a bigger base, and it's still the added and lost, the gains and loss against that base that stabilizes the circuit. It
So-
has to be working at all current levels. That's all I'm saying.
So, what would you say to an electrical engineer who would be listening to this? Like, what the heck are you talking about? I mean, are they going to be interested? Does this make sense to them? Is it just so far away from what they've been taught that any type of physical model explanations just...
Well, yeah, they're going to have to buy into change their main thought about the Einstein's photoelectric effect and the fact that that applies to the circuit. That's a connection that most electrical engineers haven't made. And it's that connection that I made which allowed me to consider the possibility of gaining and losing electrons. So once the electrical engineer he knows about the photoelectric effect, but he doesn't connect it to the circuit. So once he makes that connection, he can then validate his own understanding about the fact that you can gain and lose electrons throughout the circuit, which is contrary to what he's ever been taught.
Well, it's kind of weird because we do know. I mean, even if you wireless charging, right? I mean, it's kind of maybe even a bigger picture, which is electrons don't stay in the wires. They are they're out there, and we know, oh, there's heat. We worry about that right now. I mean, the AI centers, which are we still don't know if they're going to be worth making. Half of them that were planned to be built this year are already not even being built, and the ones that are started. But why do they have problems? Well, they've got a lot of heat that is generated, and if you look at heat, if you look in the what's the field of heat, the electromagnetic infrared. If you look at the infrared, we get waves. These are real. We would call them photons, but these are real something. So these G1 particles are flowing out of there because we're getting waves of them. That's why we can see them. And so, yeah, I think the entire idea of circuitry and things outside it, even though the average person on the street will tell you electrons go from their charger into their phone, physics doesn't say that, and electrical engineers don't say that. I mean, I guess, what is it? Induction? Is that the magic they use?
No, yeah, that's a magical word. But let me change the description to another type of circuit, and that's an RL circuit with an inductor. And the connection that the engineers don't make in this case is the fact that when the G1 particle goes through the inductor, some of them are lost there. And with the gravity 2 fields surrounding the inductor, some of those that are lost will fly away, but some of them are going to get trapped as a magnetic field. So what you end up with is a direct connection between the current flow of G1s through an RL circuit, and in particular the inductor, which will also release G1s to help make that magnetic field. Now, today, electrical engineers don't connect what the magnetic field of which it's made to the G1 particle. So
or electrons.
That's a new connection of how the G1 is used to get a magnetic field, and therefore the magnetic field is nothing but G1 particles moving in circles, like you mentioned before.
Yeah, it's, I guess what's hard to do is kind of like, once you look at the 4 universal motions as we've kind of described them, and then apply them to physics, the physical world, you can't go back in some sense. Once you see the idea that, yeah, what people call electrons are flowing through, but they're also circling around. They're making circles for magnetic fields, and that the directions of these are simply when 2 flows come together, if they're to get, the same, if the flows coming together the same direction. Really, it's funny because now that I think about it, it's just coming to my head. Magnetic motion, we really need to talk about when the loops come together, when they're in the, together in the same direction. That means the flow of the loops are in the same direction, which means they have to be spinning in opposite directions, come together, then that causes attraction. But regardless, it's once you see that these things are the same, all of a sudden a photon emanating from a diode makes total sense. It makes total sense. I mean, where is that coming from? It blows my mind.
I did a whole video on that and just kind of shot it to pieces, because electrons jumping up to a higher level because they got hit by another particle, and then it falls down to its natural level, releases energy in the form of a photon. Well, if I can sell you that bridge, I'm going to make a bunch of money.
Yeah, if you want to see my dad's work, you can go to just type in YouTube particle guru, or go to particle.guru. Yeah, there's a .guru. Particle.guru, and you'll be able to get to his website. But if you go to YouTube and you go to and search on particle guru, then you can go ahead and look that up. But so you are working on some other things, right? The other thing that's really bizarre, and I think your next talk, because hopefully we'll get you to talk again, is the back EMF, which is bizarre, where because there's no physical explanation for these things, people have to come up with empirical tricks for it to work. And it's just like, it's exactly the same as people stupidly putting a point mass in the middle of a galaxy, calculating it like it's a spherical gravitational field, which it's not, then get something different, and then having to invent dark energy or dark mass. Same mass energy is a concept, doesn't it? It's a useful concept.
So they invent back EMF to explain why the current rises so slow. But particle model has an answer for that, and you'll see it in the next video, I'm sure.
So one of the other things you're working on, and if people go to your YouTube channel and watch your videos, you talk a lot about the transitional state of electronic components, right? And there, the curves, the curve for like the transistor,
the diode curve in particular. Yeah. The particle model has a really neat explanation for that. And I won't go into a lot of it, but it involves something that people don't talk about at all, and that the various speed differences inside a circuit. Speed is not constant inside the circuit, and believe it or not, that's what makes the diode work, because it isn't constant.
That's the thing that blew my mind. It's a little different from there's a couple of things going on. In the particle model, they say, oh, light goes slower through water. What's happening? It's not going slower. It's going on a curved path. What's happening is you see the waves coming out, but they're going on a curved path, and so it just takes them longer to get to you. And they get compressed. But what's interesting is that one thing I didn't think about in our model, because the idea that gravity, light, electricity and magnetism are all the same particle because they all travel at the speed of light, is the question, well, they travel at the speed of light, but do they always travel at the speed of light? Because if you have if it's the gravitic field that's causing something to orbit, we know for a fact orbits have different velocities. Now, we can't tag an electron and watch its velocity change as it goes around an atom. In fact, in those real complex clouds, which are caused by the G2 gravitic and electric and fields and magnetic fields, you can't see that. It was not something in my brain, even with the four universal motions, that I thought, until you started talking about that, and you're saying, wait a minute, the only explanation I have hacking the universe with the four universal motions for what's the diode, was that it's got to go slower. And if you look at even a G1 particle going, if it's even around a wire, it's going faster at a place and slower than another place.
Yeah, you can. That's a great explanation. I think that video will go over pretty well, because why does the IV curve of the diode all of a sudden hit this knee and go up? Why doesn't it just go straight out? At an angle, of course, but the reason is the speed. But my point being earlier was that we don't talk about speed enough to understand the physics of what's going on in a given situation. Now, maybe it doesn't affect everything.
Yeah, sure.
But the diode is a clear example of that.
Okay, we do have some people in the green room. I don't know if anybody wants to come up here and say a few things or talk or whatever, but or question. You can if you want. If you have a question, also in the comments, just put question, and then we can get that to my father or myself. But
Keen has a question that he posted.
Oh, he did? Where does oscillating motion come from?
No. Where
Oh, that's oh, but
where
that
does this analysis? What does this analysis show that is new?
oh, that's in the private chat. Okay, I got you.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead and answer that. That's fine.
Yeah, wait a minute. What does this analysis show that is new? We're showing.
Well, we're showing that the electrons leave, right? I mean, that's new.
Well, this wasn't emphasizing the speed of the electron in this case. This was emphasizing that the stability of the circuit is caused by the addition and subtraction of G1 particles. While most engineers are taught that the stability of the circuit is based on the sum of the voltages equaling zero. And my comment back to that point is that there's no way that any individual component can analyze the circuit in such a way that it can make it balance. It has to know its own voltage drop. It has to know the voltage drop of the other resistors, if it even knows it has other resistors. So Kirchhoff's law, which is something that is quoted all the time, cannot find stability because it's looking at it from an isolated component state. In this model, we're looking at it not from each individual component. We're looking at it on the basis of the current flowing through it. And the advantage that has is that the current is flowing through each of the components, the battery and all three resistors. In a sense, it gets to see all of them. Now, that's not to say that it has eyes and it can count all these things. It doesn't do that. But the current is the only thing that I can see would balance the circuit because it's the only one that's involved with all the components. Kirchhoff's law or any other solution that doesn't use current as its basis, I think isn't going to work.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, the other thing too, of course, is the prediction by the particle model is that current is not equal around the circuit, right?
Well, yeah,
that's if that goes against electrical engineering. Electrical engineering.
Well,
says,
it goes against standard teaching, but they also teach the photoelectric effect, which says that the electron can't leave a conductor. And so if you don't put the two together, the constant current of a circuit versus the loss of electrons through a component, if you don't try to resolve that difference, you're not going to come up with the answer. But that's the problem. We use the photoelectric effect to explain that it can leave, and that is one way the circuit can find a balance. Now, as I said in the video, if anybody else has another way for the circuit to find a balance, not using the loss of the electron through components, I'd like to see it because it would be very interesting to see how that works. And I'm kind of taking a shot at Kirchhoff and his voltage law because it doesn't help you. At least in my mind, it doesn't help you. So if someone out there does have a solution as to how a simple battery with three resistors finds the right current, I'm open. I'll listen. I'm doubtful, but as a scientist, you can't afford to ignore anybody who comes forward with a solution they think is as good as this one or better.
Yeah, I think they just, the problem with asking if people have an explanation is they'd have to come up with a model for everything, and that people aren't doing that. I know that people in our group, very visible people in our group say physical models don't matter. And I'm completely opposite. When I was a kid, I want to know. I've got these magnetic fields, magnets, and they come together. There's something really happening there. The idea that it's magical and it's just a calculation. And that's what people do. It's constant. It's constant where you see people are doing what Alexander Unschker says. You build arbitrary packages with arbitrary attributes. You then create forces from them, make empirical equations for that force, never, ever, ever considering perhaps what's really going on there. So anyways, I really appreciate it. That was a really great presentation, Dad. And I appreciate you coming on and giving that to us. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
All right, folks, we're getting to the end here. Again, thank you so much to Ian Cohen and Roger Anderton for filling in all these years where I've been away. You can see I've been very busy. If you are interested and you're an email chain, please, please, please move it to the forum. You're going to get more people listening to what you're saying. And if for some reason, if you want to have a private forum, we can do that for you too. That you can only, who wants to hear what you're saying? It's only for us, and we're going to die with it. All these great things we are going to say are going to be lost. If that's your goal, you can do that too. So no matter what you want to do, it is available for everyone. And I will try to be back a little bit more often, give Ian and Roger some break time. Ian's going, please, Dave, please do that. But I do appreciate it. And we continue. Please consider becoming a member of the CMPS. It is really the only group that does this, that allows you to come on here and talk about an ether theory or a lattice theory or ours, a particle theory, whatever it is, or challenge even mainstream theory. Most of us know Einstein's wrong. The Big Bang's a joke. Particle physics, we know from the letter from Sabine Hossenfelder from the Hadron Collider people themselves, say in the email, go look up Sabine Hossenfelder, February-ish of 2025. She reveals an email. We may actually, I'm thinking about bringing that on as a talk, do it between the dissident science and this channel. So again, please sign up. You go to our website, naturalphilosophy.org. And you can sign up. They got the banners there. Click on the major things. Come see these great talks that we have. If you miss this talk, you can get it immediately right now because we stream live to YouTube and Facebook. So you'll be able to watch them right away. So again, thank everybody for all of your help and all your support. It's greatly appreciated. All right, guys. Thank you for everything. See you later.